Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Thinnest Veil podcast. I am your host, Dr. Melissa Bird, and once again, I have two of my most favorite people on the entire planet, Amy and Nancy Harrington, are joining us again. And this time, we're going to get up to some shenanigans talking about leadership and women. So, welcome, Amy and Nancy. For
I'm
people who missed our chat last time, which they should just go back and listen to it, honestly. Could you tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do?
all right. We are, as you said, Amy and Nancy Harrington. We're sisters, and we are the founders of the Passionistas Project, which is a beautiful group of women who support one another in the areas of business development, personal growth, and social impact, because everyone on our community, it's really important to them to give back and try to make the world a better place. So we spend our days trying to figure out how to promote women and support women and lift women up and create content that will help them be their best selves.
And
Yay!
I would like to add to that, and especially make women who feel like they don't have a place somewhere else, women from marginalized communities, women who are out there doing it on their own. We want to give them a safe space where they can come and they can actually feel welcome and like they can say what they want to say and be heard.
It's so great. I love it. Uh, I love it so much. I just love it.
Thank you. We do too.
Um,
A
it's
huge part of it.
I know I am a part of it, and I love it, and it makes me happy. So I want to get into talking about women's leadership because it almost makes me feel a little bit. I do not love that word leadership. Like it intones like suits,
Yeah.
like ugh. I can just picture the like shoulder patch suits of the 80s, and women are natural leaders in their communities simply by the nature of the fact of their being.
Mhm.
But over time, what has happened is we have been shoved into fitting into this mold of what leadership looks like. And I'm wondering if you've experienced that, and also how you have helped women navigate understanding how to call upon their own voice and not try and fit themselves into that stuffy leadership box.
Well, I will start by saying that I recently found out and discovered that I am a leader. I never knew I was a leader. I didn't think of myself in those terms. I've always been a self-employed freelance person. I've never had a staff. I've never had, I just like never thought of myself as a leader because leaders are, like you say, they're the boss and they're the person in the suit and they're the politician. And so those are the leaders. And that's what we have been brought up to believe, right? That's what was ingrained in us. And I very recently realized through Kylie Stone, who is one of our Power Passionistas, that first of all, we're all leaders. We're all leaders of our own lives and our own selves. But also, by building this community, Amy and I are leaders, and we are leading women to helping create a better place, right? So I
Okay, I find it really funny that you didn't realize that you were leading this group until recently.
Well, because when we built it, I'm a shy person, I'm introverted. When we built it, it was never about Amy and I are the face of this community and we're the leaders and we're the gurus that everyone comes to get our wisdom and knowledge. So to
Thank God.
to me, it wasn't about that. To me, it was about creating a space for women to come and support one another. And we just happened to make the space available to them. And it really didn't occur to me till really recently, like within the last year or so, that, oh, I'm a leader. Okay.
So in that context, what did it feel like to make that shift, Nance? Like what?
It was pretty powerful,
Yeah.
but scary. Like
Hmm.
as somebody who it's I can see the trajectory of my path this last year because I feel like once I realized that, I started putting a lot of pressure on myself because I think that again, because what we have been brought up to believe is leadership, I
Right.
felt like I didn't embody those traits. So it,
What are those traits you're referring to?
somebody who can give great speech, and somebody who, knows how to manage and organize a bunch of people and loves to stand up and talk to people. Like it's just, and I don't embody any of those traits. If I could just sit quietly by myself all the time, I would be very happy doing that. So it scared me, I think, and it took me a while over the last year to get more comfortable with that and to get back to who I am and embrace who I am and realize that that's a form of leadership too.
Nice. Amy, do you have anything to add to this?
Well, I have a completely different experience, which is rare for Nancy and I because we're so similar on so many ways. But in this way, I think we're very different. So I started my career in the entertainment industry and at the age of 27 became second in command of post-production and visual effects for all the feature films at Warner Brothers. I was the first woman in the history of the entertainment industry to hold that position
Nope.
and worked on about 250 movies, including like Harry Potter's and Matrix's. And I was thrown into that world of traditional leadership. I
Mhm.
had a staff of 40 in the office. We had hundreds of people on movies, and then we had thousands of people under them doing the work on the movies. So from the and even prior to that job, I basically was in leadership. So I was trained in the patriarchal world of leadership, of just like getting shit done. You're not supposed to be emotional. You're not supposed to be sensitive. You're just supposed to hammer things until they're done. Luckily, my boss, who was a man, and I had a very different approach. And we actually were nice to people and we were kind and I could be tough when I needed to be. I could stand up when I either was being pushed back against unfairly or when I thought somebody else was being treated unfairly or when there was like, we got to get this shit done, stop, knock it off. I can go into that mode. And I think that's actually a very helpful mode to have in your toolbox when you need it.
Yeah.
Um, but it also was very much like I had to shut down who I was as a woman to fit into that mold of the male hierarchy of a studio. And I was usually the only woman or one of the only women in the room. I was very young in comparison to everybody else. I sorry, I'm getting tea delivery. Thank you. Something else is rattling.
Don't apologize.
Thank you. Mwah. Thank you. Chips and tea. Thank you, sweetie. Sorry about that. Um, I love men. I love good men. So I was in that world. I was like, can't be a girl, got to be one of the boys, got to fit in. And so I had this very male, aggressive view
Mhm.
of leadership, tinged with I would care about people. Oh, there was just 9/11 and we had people in England and I was the only person at the studio that called them to say, do you want us to figure out how to get you home?
Yeah.
So there was always like a feminine element to my leadership style, but I was trained in that male space. When I left there, I was like, I don't want to be a leader. I don't want to be responsible for anybody. I don't want anybody asking me for anything. I don't ever,
Anyone looking up to you? No.
yeah, I don't want ever
Right.
want to do that again.
Yeah.
And then we built this community. And I actually do feel like I'm a good leader and I feel like I'm a strong leader. And
Mhm.
I've been holding that back for
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah.
And I think around the time Nancy realized her strength, I had a similar conversation with Kylie where my view of leadership was like, you got to be in this system and you got to have 1,000 employees and and Kylie helped me remember that I can be a leader to a small group. I can be a leader to one other person. I can, there's a different model of leadership than I've been taught. And so
Right.
when she said that, I was like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
Now I need to look at this as leadership. And
Mhm.
I think if anything, I hold myself back from being the leader I know I can be because I don't want to seem
Right.
bossy and have everybody else think I'm telling them what to do. And I think that's also a leftover scar from my male dominated days where I'm a woman. So if I'm helping lead people, then I am being bossy.
Right. And I think this is so important because I actually think this is why we're at politically.
Hmm.
Because we have confused like leadership with hard-fisted pounding, like I'm going to tell you how this is going to happen and we're going to get it done. I've even done this as a mother. Like you talk about disciplining kids, like you just completely disrupting what it means to get people to do things for you. Like, and I think this is why we're where we're at right now because so many of us are natural leaders. I mean, you cannot run a household. Let me just say, I just have been reading this beautiful book called The Curious Beginning, which is a Veronica Speedwell mystery, not being sponsored, but definitely could be sponsored by the publishing house, just in case you wanted to know. Like, it's set in Victorian England and it's a mystery. And the woman she's a butterfly scientist. I'm not going to try and say the word on my podcast because I cannot pronounce it. But she is delightful and amazing. And she's a scientist. She talks about the state of women in Victorian England and how they are reduced to running the household. And there is a part of me, because I run a household, who's like, you got to be able to hold 10,000 different things at once and navigate everybody's emotions and make sure that everything's going to run smoothly. And you know, like it's bananas. And so I wonder why, what is the beautiful, passionate secret sauce that's happening right now that is allowing us to rise up and be like, actually, no, I'm going to totally embody this shit.
I think it's
That's
twofold. I think I think we're I think the thing that shifted in the Passionista sisterhood, and I see it happening with a lot of women in general and a lot of women running communities, is there's a vulnerability that wasn't there before. There's like, I can't keep up the pretense that everything is okay.
Right.
And you're
Right.
not going to believe me if I say it is. You see what's happening. Let's be real about it. This is screwed up. And I'm upset today. You're having a hard time, whatever it is. Like, so there's a vulnerability. And I do think the other element of it is like, we're fed up. And it's like, okay, enough is enough. Like we've been watching this go south for a long time, and we have not had our voice heard strongly enough. We have
No.
not made our voice heard strongly enough. And if we don't start doing it now, there's really not going to be an opportunity later. So we
No.
better get collectively as women across the board, we better get our act together and figure out how to team up to make a change because no one's done it for us and they're never going to do it for us. And if we don't do it now,
Yeah.
yeah, and we're going the wrong way, people. We're going the wrong way.
Well, and I think the other thing, I love what you said about keeping up the pretense that it's okay, right? Because boy, if that's not a way of shoving down our feelings and ignoring what's going on going on in the room, right? It is a very big indicator about the way that we have been taught to live at this heightened, elevated state of awareness. And it's this response that is just in us, that has been collectively in us for literally hundreds of years. And I I love what you said about that because I was doing some writing yesterday, and one of the things that someone reflected back to me on my piece was that you can simultaneously hold despair and joy at the
Mhm.
exact same time.
Mm.
just saw that. I just saw something like that today.
There's a message. There's a sign of your sign. Nancy, you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, right? Holding despair and joy at the same time. I love that.
Yeah.
We're all going through that. Yeah, I think the vulnerability is the key. I don't know how we get to that on a national level. I don't know how we make it okay for women who are, running for office, for example, like how we make it okay for them to be emotional and vulnerable and because then they're just written off as not being strong enough, right? I mean, we've seen that now in 2 presidential cycles.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point because I'm listening to all these podcasts about how the Democratic Party has a problem and
Mhm.
it needs to, it needs to stop acting the way it's been acting.
Yeah.
It needs to shift the way it talks. And I'm listening to mostly men talk about how, I mean, these guys have been involved in the party for 15, 20 years, right? And most of them are talking about just that, Nancy, that we've got to be more open and vulnerable. Like we have to start talking about not maintaining the status quo, and I think a big vulnerability is saying, I'm not going to maintain the status quo. And in fact, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to stir it up, and I'm going to see where we can go next by using the skills and the talents that I have to make a difference in people's lives and in my community. And that vulnerability piece, it's okay for men.
Right.
But when women do it, it becomes problematic. And we're not saying the right thing and we're not doing the right thing and we're not behaving. Well, I
Right.
don't want to behave.
Right.
Because
Well,
what is
it's
the
interesting.
status I'm behaving up against?
Yeah, it's interesting. We had a conversation with someone recently who voted for Trump.
Mhm.
And when we asked why, they said, because he's a disruptor.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it was like, oh shit. Like,
Yes.
yeah, that's what we're not doing, right?
Uh-uh.
That's what we're
Uh-uh.
not doing.
No, the reason people like Donald Trump is because he is stirring the pot.
Mhm.
And he's stirring the pot for white supremacy and Christian nationalism, which is really horrifying on a number of levels. And yet people love it.
Yeah.
So why do you think like what is it?
Well, I think part of it with him is it's the show, right? I mean, the man knows how to produce a show.
Oh yeah.
I tell the story a lot, but I worked at Warner Brothers for 10 years, and every day at lunch we'd go to the commissary and you go in, you get your tray, you get your food. I don't care if it was George Clooney or the head of the studio, that was how you got your lunch.
Mhm.
And everybody would just, oh, there's George Clooney, you'd look, but that was it. Donald Trump walked in one day with Marla Maples long before he was even on TV. He was just the real estate mogul that was getting written about in Spy magazine. And every single person in the room stopped and followed every step he took as he walked through the room.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like it before or since. I remember thinking at the time, what is going on? Why is everybody so fascinated with this person? There is something about him that draws attention. So he gets the attention, he
Yep.
needs the attention, and then he produces the show. So everything is about what's the next thing that's going to get people tuning in? What's the distraction so that no one's paying attention to what I'm doing over here? I don't want them to see that I'm stripping away Medicaid. So I'm going to talk about, whatever the next
Whatever.
stupid thing
That
is.
magnetism. And when women have magnetism, it's problematic.
Right.
Right.
When people are drawn to us, it's because we're doing something nefarious or slutty or,
Mhm.
like whatever the
Mhm.
assumptions that people make about women. And I'm
And those things are wrong, but they're okay when a guy does it.
right, of course.
And
This
it's quality. Oh, he's sexy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really wonder, as you've been growing this community and you've been growing into yourselves as leaders, which is really, really lovely. What do you think? What would happen if we took, I mean, I love anger. I'm a big fan of anger. But like I had someone send me a sticker that said angry women will change the world. And I actually cut the angry off of it. So it just says women will change the world.
Mhm.
I'm wondering what you think we can do as women to start removing, not like in a whitewashing bullshitty kind of way, because I don't want to do that. I think anger is really important. And I'm like I said, I'm very good at doing anger. Um, I'm not so good at doing grace. I'm not so good at softening myself so that like I can I'm very good at connecting. I am magnetism, right? Like you were talking about Trump walking into a room. When I walk into a room, the same thing happens. Like people know I'm there. I have a very large presence to me. What do
Mhm.
you think it's going to take for people to maybe insert a different word besides angry in front of this idea of women will change the world? Or what do you hope will happen?
Wow.
I mean, I'd like to see anger transformed into passion.
Mm,
I think you can be as equally worked up about a topic and make it a positive thing. I'm passionate about this rather than I'm mad about it. You know, we are not we don't tend to be angry people. It just wasn't an emotion really. Our dad was kind of angry, but in a less aggressive way.
And I
Um,
think it made us less angry because
yeah.
just sort of rebelled against his anger.
Yeah, so we certainly don't like yell and we're not like, ugh, but I can go on a rant. I can get a topic stuck in my craw and I can
get
spew about it for
up on your soapbox.
long, way too long. So I think that there's a to me, there's a thing about anger that pushes people away,
Mm,
and there's a thing about passion that draws people in.
Mm.
mm,
So I think I appreciate anger and I understand. I respect what you say about anger and I know rage becomes her and I get why I'm not being negative about it. I'm just
yeah,
saying I think it's harder for people to hear anger than it is for them to hear passion.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think?
It's funny as somebody who I definitely am not an angry person. It takes a lot to get me mad. So if you get me mad, you know it's really bad. Um, as someone who is like that, I I have a hard time figuring out how that softness translates into leadership and
Mm,
how you get accepted that way. Because it's something that I have struggled with all my life. I'm looked at as quiet and reserved and shy. And so I'm sort of brushed off to the side, because I don't make my presence known. So
mhm,
I don't know how you replace the anger. I do love Amy's passion replacing anger. I think that's really, really smart. But I do think it's getting it's one of the, it's funny, not to keep coming back to Kylie, but I know one of the exercises she did in her leadership course was she had us pick somebody that we admired as a leader, and then she had us write down the traits that we admired in that person.
yep.
And then she had us read the traits. And after I read the traits, she said to me, "Well, you just described yourself very well, Nancy." And it's true, like you gravitate towards the things that you see reflected about yourself, right? So, it's so coincidentally, my person that I chose that day was Barack Obama. I
Mm,
do think that he is an example of somebody who led with compassion and empathy and a quiet sort of stillness. But I think he has that magnetism too. So I don't know
does he?
how to reconcile those two things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is just I really want people to walk away from this conversation really thinking about just, I keep having this visual come to me about the sand that turns into the pearl and the oyster. Like I really want us to start irritating things.
Right.
Like I want everyone to just think about if I could just be a little irritant to turn something into this beautiful pearl, what would I do to just irritate things a little bit? And I really want people to start thinking about leadership in a completely different way because I think that is what's going to transform our communities when we start looking towards leaders who aren't necessarily elders, who
Mhm.
aren't necessarily parents, who aren't necessarily able-bodied. Then what happens is we start to see the beauty and the wisdom and the mosaic of our communities.
Right.
And that is really what we're searching for right now. We're searching for that mosaic of community where we can connect with each other in a very authentic, vulnerable way, even though most people are terrified of that idea.
Right. Well, I think that's what makes our sisterhood strong, is that we built it on the foundation of welcoming everybody in,
Yeah.
and we're very in your face about it. Like we're not going to turn into a homogenized group of white women who are wringing our hands trying to figure out how to solve the problem. Like we are a diverse group of women who are coming together to support each other. And I do think that's kind of the key, I think. And it's complete opposite of what's happening in the current administration of,
Yeah, and then I love that you said that about hand wringing. There is not a whole lot of hand wringing going on in that in the circle. Like people are getting some shit done.
yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
yeah.
I also think, if you're talking about the sand, it's like the sand just shows up.
Yep.
The sand doesn't jump in your shoe and go, I'm gonna drive them crazy that I'm this thing that they're feeling. The sand just is there,
Yeah.
I think showing up, I think we're all learning that showing up, and as you would point out, in whatever way we can is key. Whether that is going to a protest, whether that is making a phone call, whether that's just being there in support of the other people who you care about who are struggling, like whatever that thing is, to me, being the sand is like, okay, I'm here. Now, what can I do to help, make you aware, I guess, of my presence and what does that propel you to do?
Yeah. I really like that a lot. I
Mhm.
was listening to people talk about language
Mhm.
and how very alienating progressive language is, because it's very ivory tower
Yeah.
academic, and it's very policing, it's very tone policing as well. Like if you don't get it right, the amount of shame that's heaped on us for not getting our quote unquote language right is actually alienating people. And
Mhm.
it's why people are not drawn to more progressive politics, because they feel terrified that they're going to say and do the wrong thing. That it doesn't allow for a very wobbly human experience, which is really what we're all doing here, is having the wobbly human experience. And I will say that one of the things I love the most about being part of the Passionistas project is that there is no tone policing in those rooms. There is no tone policing in those rooms. And consequently, the level of respect that we have for each other is much higher than I have seen it in other spaces.
Mhm.
And I wonder, when you think about outside of the Passionistas project and the world that you inhabit, what do you hope for people when it comes to thinking about how we talk to each other and how we communicate for each other? What do you hope for the communities outside of the Passionistas project? Like, what have you learned from this experience?
I hope that people, instead of talking, will listen.
Mm,
To me, that's the biggest problem is people aren't hearing each other. People are set in their ways, and this is what I think, and this is how it works, and this is how it goes. This is how you should live your life according to how I think.
mm,
And instead, we all need to shut up and listen to everyone else's experiences and understand what they are going through. And that's the first step. Like, until you understand what it's like to be somebody down the street, less than a mile down the street from my house at the U-Haul place, standing on the corner, just trying to make $100 by helping someone move into their apartment, getting hauled off by ICE.
yep.
Till you live that experience, how can you change things? So I think people need to shut up and listen.
Amy, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's about intent. I agree with you about the language policing, and sometimes it's hard in the community, like to not want to jump in and be like, oh, did you, okay, that's the tone they're going to use, or oh, that's the word, oh, that word. Is that going to offend everybody that they use that word? And it's like, we created a space where people, I mean, it started with a podcast and it's come to this point. We want to give women a platform to tell their own authentic, unfiltered stories.
Yep.
That means letting people use the language that they need to use to express themselves, as long as they're being respectful of other people. If someone's
Right.
starting
As
a
long as
fight,
they're not causing harm. Yep.
not causing harm, but if it's like, I need to say this word to convey to you my experience, or this is how the language I use to talk about this topic,
Don't
then
you feel like though, because women are using their authentic, unfiltered stories, they're not causing harm.
they're not exactly. And I was going to
Oh,
say, and as a result, it's, like sometimes I get nervous that it's going to, and then it's like, it didn't. Okay, great. That worked. Um, and the other thing I think with the whole, like, what you're saying about other people, like, are you using the proper pronouns? Are you referring to a specific community with the terminology that they would want you to use? I think it's about intent. I think, are you saying a word because you know it's the wrong word and you're trying to like piss people off? Or do you just not know what the right word is and so you're just speaking and you are open to being educated? Or did you slip because that's been your experience for 35 years to use this one word and you absolutely didn't mean to offend anybody, but you just don't know any better or you forgot for a second? Like, I think people know when someone's intent is good.
yeah.
And they're not so like quick to freak out and be like, "Oh my God, you said that wrong."
Right,
If
right.
they know that the person is good-hearted and trying to understand somebody else's experience. So I know even for us, there are times where I'm like, I'm not sure what terminology I'm supposed to use. I'll either Google it or I'll ask somebody I know in the community, like, what do you know what the right terminology is? And we always say to people, if you don't know, you can ask us. And if we don't know, we'll find out. Um, but I think that as long as you mean to say it in a way that's respectful of the other person or address the issue in a way that's respectful of the other point of view, that's what keeps our community strong. And I think it's what we need to do because we have to bridge. Nancy and I are sick of the bridge. We have to build a bridge, but we do have to find a way to bridge this gap between the extreme sides of the parties.
Listen, we can build a bridge all day long, but people have to be willing to walk over the bridge
Exactly.
and sit
Exactly.
in their discomfort on
Right.
the other side of the bridge.
And
People have to be
listen,
willing to be super uncomfortable.
totally. And it's hard. And we've done it. We've been doing it with people on the
Yeah,
other side. And it's really like, oh, interesting. Okay, this is very challenging for me. It's very challenging for me to look beyond my beliefs on
yeah,
this topic and not freak out in the middle of this conversation because I don't understand. But if the politicians aren't going to bring us together, the
mm-mm.
media isn't bringing us together, the thought leaders, the religious leaders aren't. So it's up to us as individuals. And I think especially women to women, like there's so many things we can connect on that like, let's connect on those things. There are a lot of women that we've connected with and then found out later we have very different political views. And at that point, it's like, yeah, but I already love you. I
Yep,
already think you're a wonderful person. I know how good you are because you do this.
yep,
So I can look past that. And now let's talk about some things that we disagree about and why we are on those sides of the issue so that we can understand the perspective better. And it works,
it's
but it's
almost like
hard.
when we connect on a human to human level, something
Yeah.
happens between our souls and our brains and our hearts, and we actually end up liking each other as human beings, even if we don't agree on 100% of the things.
Right.
Because as we
Sure,
like,
bananas,
as we
shenanigans.
as we keep saying to many people, name 5 people, name one person that you agree 100% about everything with that person. There isn't anybody. It's
No,
impossible.
no, it's impossible.
So you can
So,
either sit alone in your room or you can get
yeah,
to know people.
Commune with the community.
I love that. Y'all, thanks so much for joining me today.
Is it
I
over?
love
It's
you.
amazing.
I
What's
know. I know we could talk for 300 years, but we're not going to, because then people won't listen to my podcast
So
anymore.
that'd be-
How can everybody find the community?
Go to thepassionistasproject.com. All the things are there.
Yay. Thank you so much for joining me today. I love you both so much.
Love you too.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.